She was not a priest or a preacher, not a scholar or a queen. She was a wife, a mother, and yet her simple faith would shame the mighty and silence the proud. When they led her to the fire, she looked toward heaven and said,
I am content to die for the truth of Christ, for I will not worship wood and stone.
Her name was Agnes Prest, the faithful housewife who would rather burn than bow. Agnes Prest was born in Cornwall, in the southwest of England, far from the centers of power, but close to the heart of faith. She was a devout woman who loved the scriptures, which she heard read in her parish church during the reign of King Edward VI. When Queen Mary restored Roman Catholicism to England, Agnes was heartbroken to see the English Bibles removed and the Mass restored. The images and relics that had been cast down returned to the altars. When her local priest knelt before an image of the Virgin Mary, Agnes said plainly,
What do you there? You kneel to a dead stock of wood. Do you think God dwells there, or the image can hear you?
Such words, simple but fearless, sealed her fate. Agnes's husband, unable to endure the danger her faith brought upon their household, urged her to recant. But she refused. Heartbroken and afraid, he reported her to the local authorities. She was arrested and brought before Bishop Turberville of Exeter, a man infamous for his cruelty toward the reformers. When questioned about the presence of Christ in the Mass, Agnes boldly declared,
I believe that Christ sitteth at the right hand of God, and not enclosed in a piece of bread.
The bishop mocked her, saying,
Thou art but a woman, and thou wilt be burned. I am God's creature, and I will not worship any but him.
Agnes was thrown into the prison at Exeter, where she remained for many months. Her captors hoped time would soften her resolve, but the opposite happened. She used her time to pray and encourage others, declaring that though her body was bound, her faith was free.
You have the law on your side, but not the truth. I have the truth, though not the law. And I would rather die in the truth than live in falsehood.
Her calmness enraged her accusers. Unable to refute her words, they sentenced her to death by fire. On a summer morning in 1557, Agnes Prest was led from the Exeter prison to the place of execution, just outside the city walls. When she reached the stake, she turned to the crowd and said,
Good people, I am come hither to die for confessing the truth of Christ. I have no other comfort but this, that I shall live with him forever.
She was chained to the post and the fire was kindled. As the flames rose, she cried out,
Lord Jesus, strengthen me, for into thy hands I commend my spirit.
The wind blew her voice across the field and many in the crowd wept. When the fire consumed her, a witness said,
She never shrank, nor cried out in despair, but died with joy and peace.
Agnes Prest's courage shook those who condemned her. Bishop Turberville himself was said to have avoided the city for weeks, troubled by her faith. Her name spread across England, not as a rebel, but as a witness. Fox wrote of her, She was a poor woman in the eyes of the world, but rich in faith and bold as a lion. In an age where few women could read or write, Agnes Prest preached a sermon more powerful than any words, the sermon of faithfulness unto death. Her story reminds the church that the gospel belongs not to the powerful, but to the pure in heart. Agnes Prest's life was simple, her faith was not. She was a wife and mother who stood alone when even her husband turned away. But she knew something greater than fear. She knew the love of Christ. When everything familiar was stripped away, she found that Jesus was enough. Her courage reminds us that faithfulness is not proven in comfort, but in conviction. We may never face the stake or the sword, but every day, we face the choice to stand for truth or bow to convenience. Agnes Prest shows us that ordinary faith becomes extraordinary when it will not bend. So when you feel small, forgotten, or afraid to speak up, remember her. Remember the woman who would not kneel to wood and stone. Remember the faithful housewife who lifted her eyes to heaven and whispered, I am content to die for the truth of Christ. Because the same grace that carried her through the flames still carries every believer who stands firm today. This was the story of Agnes Prest, the faithful housewife. May her courage remind us that God uses ordinary people to do eternal things.